You're listening to Techsuite for the C-suite, where we bridge the gap between technology and executives.
Welcome, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. For all the listeners, would you please give us a short brief, what you're working on, and your story?
Yeah, sure. Like when Twitter got acquired by Elon Musk, um, all the people I was following there like went went to all kinds of other platforms. Um, Mainly, well, BlueSky was kind of not really there, so mostly Mastodon and Noster and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I think Farcaster already existed then. I'm not quite sure, but and Blue Sky at some point also became really popular. So yeah, I went from one client. I only really use Twitter. I don't use Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. I guess I'm a bit too old for that. But no, I just like the short text-based stuff that Twitter allowed, and also I always used like the chronological timeline, so I never really liked Facebook or those kind of things. So then I went from like one software or one app on your mobile phone to like four, and
Yep.
I don't really care which one I use, or I just like to follow interesting people and just uh, shit post and whatever. And I don't really care if it's on Blue Sky or Farcaster or Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
So, like for
well,
you, it's like, well, Elon Musk buys Twitter, and you're like, okay, shit, I'm now spread across all of those different
yeah,
apps, right?
yeah. So it was mainly just because the people I followed were just like going places, and um,
Yeah.
and then I was like, well, I don't. If I post someone, or if I post something, I do it for the people who follow me, and I don't really care who they are, and I don't really post different things. Well, now I kind of do, but back then I didn't really post different things on the different platforms. And I was, yes, okay, now I have to like cut and paste my message and post it four times. That's pretty annoying. So I wrote
Yeah.
as a fun project, I was like, okay, let's check this stuff out. And I wrote a command line uh, like tool that just posted to all the platforms that I was using. And that included Twitter, which I couldn't use the API because it was already like 45,000 euros or something to use it. I'm
Yep.
not quite sure.
Well, there's one tier that's like 100 or something. Then
Yeah,
there's a like project tier that's like 5,000 a month. And then
yeah,
if you want to get the full-on Twitter experience with all of the data, yeah, it's 40
yeah.
something
So
thousand dollars.
I wasn't planning to give the richest man in the world even more money. So I wrote some kind of screen, what do you call it? Selenium.
Oh, you browser emulators, yeah. So you kind of like
Yeah.
went, okay, here's my browser Twitter.
So I used that, and that was kind of annoying because it broke every few weeks, and there's all kind of anti-scraping automation stuff they have. I mean, if you ever post to Twitter, maybe sometimes you've you run across that you have to press the button twice to post something, and that's like anti-scraping protection because sometimes it happens, sometimes it's not. Like the input button looks the same as a user, but it's kind of different every time if you're like look in the developer tools of your browser. Um, yeah, so then I had this tool, and well, you're using the app, and then you have to go to your computer to post something. So that didn't really work, and I thought it was would be a fun project to uh, also read everything in a single app. So I made another like for fun command line thing, like the old, if you know the old DOS like terminal programs, like the blue with yellow cursor stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I wrote it in Linux with end cursors, and that was kind of fun. And then I was like, okay, maybe I could make something serious out of this. So I started looking in, like for my day job, I use Angular for front end development. I think I would be a full stack engineer. I don't know what it's called these days, but for the front end, I use Angular, and because I like it, because it's a piece of software that I became the main developer of. It already existed, and then I was like, well,
Yep.
okay, let's use the same. Let's make a web client, and then it'll work on iOS and on everything. So at some point, I had a pretty okay web client that could do that could read like the timelines of Farcaster, Noster, BlueSky, and Mastodon. That was like a year later. I think that's about a year ago. And I had some discussions with friends that own companies and like how can we how can I do more with this or maybe sell it or whatever. Um, so it was some kind of SaaS software where you would run it
Yep.
centralized. People would use it. You could use and they could maybe subscribe or whatever. And then I was like, I don't really like programming in Angular or front end stuff, and web clients on mobile are usually a bit clunky. And I don't like to be a sys administrator. I've been avoiding that in my day job. And then if I'm doing like a side project for fun in my
Yeah,
spare time,
it's
yeah,
like
if I'm gonna build something, I don't want to be a sysadmin. It's hard work. It's totally different from being a developer. It causes me stress, and then after talking with some friends, I was like, okay, let's check out if just maybe making a native mobile client is an option. Yeah, I forgot to mention like one of the reasons I don't like those to use those four different apps is because my main mobile OS is Silvis OS, which is like a continuation of Nokia. Like after at some point, Microsoft kind of destroyed Nokia and whatever they were working on, and some of those guys founded their own company, and it's called Jolla in Finland, and they continued developing. And in 2013, they released Silvis OS and also their own phone, their own hardware. And I've kind of been using that on and off since then. I've been using it pretty fully like the last 2 years as my main driver. And before that, I always switched between a de-googled Android phone or Silvis OS like every 6 months or
yeah,
whatever. But there aren't like native clients for WhatsApp or any of the social media platforms. Some people have made Mastodon clients because, yeah, it's kind of the open source thing, and a lot of people flock to Silvis OS for that. So that gets developed, but a BlueSky client isn't there. Noster wasn't there. Farcaster isn't there either.
no, for sure not.
No, so I thought, well, it would be cool to have like a native client for that. So that's also one of the reasons I started doing it.
Yeah,
And
but then
I
with a
found
native client, you wouldn't have to run your own backend servers and all of it because you're building on top of like other
yeah,
APIs and open systems.
yeah. So um, for a native client, you just do the API calls to the platforms, and that's it. But you don't have to run a server somewhere. And I just hate front end development.
Which you're still
It's
doing
just
with the native client though, right? Like
Mhm.
you're still doing front end though, but when you're
For
building a
my day
native
job,
client, right?
yeah, but it's only part of my day job, so it's bearable. But I don't know. It's just so many layers of abstraction before, like, if you have got like a knob in the front end or a value, and you need to propagate it to the database. There's like 7 layers in different languages, and it's
Yep,
not my cup of tea. It doesn't make me
depends
happy.
depends on the
Yeah,
project and how it's set up, but
yeah,
I can see that happening, especially when you're adding caches and different kinds of backends.
yeah, and
Uh,
also if you're inherited an existing legacy project,
yeah, well, then you
so
don't
there's
really
that as
get to
well.
make the decisions. Yep. No, then, so
Yeah,
now you're building the native client roughly
yeah.
a
So I
year
ran,
ago, right?
yeah,
But
I ran across. Sorry.
yeah, and then how? how does that go in terms of like early users? You have like a few friends, early users that are like giving you feedback, or it's like, well, no, I just love doing this on the side and it's really cool and I keep building it.
Um, I'm getting to a point now where people, I'm going to let other people use it. Like the main, I've been like I was in a, I did a lot of development like the last year, and then like in December, January, there was a bit of a rut or whatever you call it, and I had a little break, and then I started again a few weeks ago, and I was like, well, let's just do some low hanging fruit for usability, and now I'm pretty much dog fooding it. I'm using it more for at the moment. I'm using it for like Mastodon and BlueSky. For now, I've turned off Farcaster and Noster just to get it out of the door quicker. Um, and I don't use the Mastodon like the other Mastodon and BlueSky client just sometimes because not everything is implemented like notifications, direct messages. Um, but it's getting. I kind of enjoy using it. I also like the only other person who has used it so far. I did show it to some other people, but like the only one who really used it was my daughter, and she was like,
Yeah.
"There's no dark mode," and I was okay. Good point. I mean, I used to like pray for dark mode when I was younger. I'm like I turned 50 this year, and like when I was 25, it was all light, everything in GUIs, uh, and now that I get older, stuff gets harder to read in dark mode. So I just only use light mode, and she was like, "Hey, I'm missing that." I was okay, yeah, and uh, so that was fun. And now,
So now there's dark mode.
yeah, I put it in right away. It wasn't really hard, so it's cool. And like I said, now I'm getting to the point where I'm going to put out an alpha version for Sailfish, or it's like uh, one of these weeks. Not it should be two.
Nice.
Let's say 2 weeks, but no, it should be too long. And there have been some people also on Farcaster and others that initially showed interest, but there was like maybe already almost a year ago or more than half a year
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So they're probably not interested anymore, but I'll just give them a message and say like, yo, here's like, I've got an alpha version. Um, here's an APK. If you want to install it, go ahead and, you know, don't
Does it
expect
also
too
work
much of it.
across Android devices then?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Across what?
Does it also then work like with the APK across like other Android devices so people can load it in?
Yeah, well, that's the thing we are going to find out. I mean, I'm a single developer, so I don't have a lot of Android phones. I do have a couple of them, but yeah, the ones I've tried it on work so far. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. After I had that talk with some friends, I was like, yeah, maybe a native client is better to do, is the more sensible thing to do. And I found a really nice, what do you call it, GUI library. I tend to programming Common Lisp in my spare time if I just want to enjoy myself, and it's something I'm fluent in, and it's like really powerful, flexible language. And this framework uses QML, and that's also the thing that's used by Sailfish. Also, that made it really convenient, and it also compiles to Android. Apparently also to iOS, but I have no machines to test that. And it also works on desktop, and I've ironed out most of the issues. So yeah, everything I see on desktop while developing ends up pretty much the same on mobile. There's like very few issues or differences. So I can just develop on my big screen and on my desktop machine, compile it, and then I can try it out.
Wow, that's pretty cool. What got you
Yeah.
initially
So
like
that's what.
interested in all of that? What got
Yeah.
you like initially hooked? Like, was it really that just people move across different systems, and now you're like, okay, I just have to cross compile and want one list where everything is in one, or is it like, oh, you just started being across networks? As you said, like, oh, Neo, I was in
Ah,
Twitter, and then I moved across, and now you're building your own app to bring it back into one.
yeah, good question. Initially, it was the posting to the different platforms that made it annoying. Like I said, I didn't really care where my posts ended up. So when I wanted to post some kind of brain fart, I wanted it to be on BlueSky and on Noster and on everything. And then I had to like compose it somewhere and couldn't paste it, and then post it in 4 or 5 different places, and that was just annoying. So that was my initial thing that I started doing, like the command line posting client. Uh, and then I was like, well, maybe it's fun to have a combined timeline. There wasn't really much when I started on it, and then pretty quickly on Farcaster, Yup showed up,
Yep,
which
which
is one of
which
those.
which has already been shut down in that year.
Oh,
Yeah,
I wasn't. No, okay. Well, that's good, I guess, for me. No, that's not nice, but there's Open Vibe now. I think it's only for Android. I'm not sure, and it does Noster, Mastodon, and BlueSky, of course. There's like I think there's almost none of those support Farcaster, which is interesting.
yep.
On iOS, there's Croissant, but I've not.
Firefly, I think, is one that supports multiple networks, including
Yeah,
Farcaster across. But like
okay.
Countless, for example, also always had this like gripe of he just wants one that supports all.
Hmm.
That's kind of this, and then you kind of get into a struggle where some kind of dev team they support only like a select set, and if you care about all the different sets, you're at least using 2 or 3 tools to just cross post everywhere. So there doesn't really seem to be a solution. Like for what we do, we use Buffer a
Hmm.
lot, which is also it's not a client with that shows you posts, but it's like just posting itself, like just what you initially said
Hmm.
with the command line action and cross posting. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, there's also a lot of the like smaller niche networks that just fell off and on the long end, right? And they don't support. So we're missing
yeah.
out on that. We can post to the major ones, but
Uh, Yeah, so what I was, so I'm really making this for, well, mainly myself, and then I'm going to put it out there and hopefully it's usable for other people. And who knows, maybe there's big interest, maybe not. Um, but I really want it to be, if you're a mobile user and you just want to follow some people and read the stuff, maybe like something, repost something, and make a comment. That's mainly my use case. Sorry, I have to cough really bad.
all good.
Ah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And do you then like when you look across all of those different networks, what's kind of your opinion on seeing the little differences the different communities form? Is it really similar, or what do you observe across different networks?
Yeah, yeah. Initially, I said I didn't really care where I posted something, and that my behavior was the same across all the networks. But that has pretty much changed. Like Farcaster, I'm mainly tipping Degen to like fun, nice photos or generative art or whatever. And it's really like the cryptocurrency Web3 corner for me at least, and also for like what other people maybe use Instagram for. So scrolling through nice pictures from nature or photos. Mastodon is like a lot of furries and retro computing hacker kind of people and open source programming communities as well. Um, Blue Sky is like where I'm I don't know how to say this kindly, but where like the normal Twitter people went,
Yep.
with
Carry
like
on.
the still jokes and the usual behavior, like people like what do you call it, like influencer kind of engagement farming kind of people. I think they mostly went there. Noster is hardcore freedom loving Bitcoin people.
Yep.
um, Edward Snowden went there, but I think he went back to Twitter. I'm not sure. And Lynn Alden, who's this kind of financial kind of woman, and also into cryptocurrencies. She's really cool to follow. I can really recommend people to follow her on Noster. So yeah, that's my impression so far. I haven't really used Lens or Lenster, or I don't know if it's got a different name now. It seemed interesting, but it was hard to get into. I couldn't get like an invite or whatever. And now I do have one, but I haven't checked it out anymore. Yeah, you also see like some people going back to personal websites and RSS feeds. That's also like people who want to say like F you to big tech and just want to get some of that old internet feeling back, I guess.
Which basically means like as a end user, I'm aggregating across all of them, right? Like you're doing, and you're building your own tool for it. Is when you said your behavior changed on where you post, is that basically because you've now figured out, okay, this is kind of the vibe of the people, the communities that you're in and interacting with? Or is it more like, okay, no, I actually like feel different on the platforms? How did that go?
Yeah, probably a bit of both. Like different people from Twitter move to different platforms, so already automatically kind of different communities started there with their own like behaviors or whatever. Um, I guess I adapted to it. So yeah, I don't really have really deep thoughts about it.
when when you look at it from your daughter's point of view, is she like able to use all of the different networks and get all of the different information because she's now has this little one app and doesn't have to go across five, or what's
Well,
what's
no,
been her point? So,
no, I can't really comment on that because she doesn't really use it that often. I just show it to her now and then and
yep.
get some comments for her. But she, by herself, she wasn't on a lot of networks. She was on Twitter, but not anymore. She used to be on Instagram, but she also isn't on those things anymore. She's mostly on Discord with her friends. So
Which is another one, right? That doesn't really follow any of the other form factors, really. Is it's
no, it's
more
yeah, more like
chat,
for me, like
group chat.
Telegram, WhatsApp, those kind of things.
Yeah.
It feels different for me. I wouldn't want to make an app that also includes like WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal or whatever, because it feels like a different use case,
Yep.
personal, direct
Yeah.
messages and social media platforms. But I've seen it done, I think, on some
No,
clients.
there's for sure there's aggregators across all of the different message channels. What's really interesting for me there is what is the biggest difference between like a social media app and the messaging apps? Because every
Mhm.
single social media app has direct messages, right?
Yeah, that's true. Which I'm, well, kind of surprised. I mean, it makes it easy to reach out to someone personally. But I never use them for like a lot of messaging. If I start talking a lot with someone on a social media platform, I just give them my Signal or WhatsApp number or whatever, Telegram. But I don't use it a lot for direct messages. Although I have been thinking of like if I were to include direct messages in my app, like there's the XMTP stuff being developed by one of the Farcaster people, Shane something.
Yeah, XMCP is like which started out as being this like, oh, we don't have a way to go from like different kind of crypto wallets and
Mhm.
communicate with each other. It's opened up a little bit from that. I don't know if it's still full on like crypto address based. I think so.
Mhm.
They also now resolve Farcaster names,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's for sure not far spread. Like I don't
Oh
really see it outside of that bubble, and even inside that bubble, I don't really see it.
no, that's. I mean, earlier the people were pushing the Farcaster people like for direct messages just use XMTP, but I think Cassie Hart and also the other guys had some issues with it. I think security wise, but I'm not sure. I'm not really too deep into that. But that would have seemed like a good thing to grow it and like to have direct messaging across platforms.
Yeah, we'll see how it ends up. They apparently also say that like Farcaster itself will have a direct messaging system at one point that
Hmm.
will be open for other people. Currently, you have APIs that you can use to message across Farcaster, so that would potentially work.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's some struggles with that in its current implementation, early 2025.
yeah. They
If
seem to. Oh, sorry. No, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
They seem to be like, yeah, developing their FID system to make it like another layer, um, or another. Yeah, what do you call it? Platform or
Well,
identity layer.
yeah, identity
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Where you now have this different kind of usernames and all of that. To me, it's really interesting. Like, if you go across different channels, do you also then follow similar people, or like you described earlier, it's like really separate kind of bubbles for you, and then you just aggregate that content, and now you have the
Mhm.
feed that you want? 'Cause I feel like you could probably get that a lot on Twitter, maybe even Instagram, TikTok, because they just have so much depth in all kinds of topics.
Mhm. Um, it depends on the persons. Like some people post the same stuff to BlueSky and Mastodon mainly. So I just follow them on one or another channel. But there are also others who like behave. Yeah, behave is maybe a bit of a negative word, but behave differently on one platform and post other content on other platforms, even on like text-based stuff like BlueSky and Mastodon. Um, so it really depends on the persons who I follow.
Have you looked into the major social media platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter,
No, not at all.
Instagram recently?
No, I've never used Instagram. I guess I'm more like a text-based person.
Facebook then?
Um, sorry.
Facebook may work then. The original Facebook app.
Yeah, I kind of have issues with big tech, so
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't use Facebook at all. I'm kind of stuck with WhatsApp. I've trying to cut it down, but it's really popular in Europe and also in the Netherlands. It's like everywhere, so that's hard to get rid of. But I don't use any of the other stuff. LinkedIn, I just when I have to use it. I mean, for my work, I sometimes post there if we have a new release. And uh, and Twitter, I'm not on Twitter anymore either. I guess for
Uh,
obvious reasons.
so that's been interesting. So like for you, the different kind of apps are like, okay, I need to like aggregate back the content together, and I have ideological reasons for like opting out of the big platforms.
Hmm. Well, no, like if like for my app, I wouldn't mind. I don't want to like decide for other people what they can or cannot use. So I would definitely support Twitter if they had like not like super expensive API.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I'm not sure. It feels like a bit of a different, not really social media platform. I don't think it's the same as Blue Sky and Twitter and Mastodon. Facebook maybe. It's also they don't like they like to keep it for themselves, all the stuff. So I don't know how easy it would be to include it. Yeah, or maybe threads, I guess.
Well, yeah. I totally forgot about threats. Yeah, that would probably be
Yeah,
the closest like big
whatever.
tech
Yeah,
comparison
I
for
don't
Twitter.
think. Yeah,
Damn,
I
I've
don't
never
know if
heard
it's
of
so
threats.
popular.
I haven't heard of threats like in a while, but like the app
Oh,
itself, like I used the iOS app for a while just to use
uh-huh.
it because it felt so good on like a
Okay. Yeah.
mobile standpoint.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, they usability. They're really good at that. Um,
Yeah, just the content wasn't mine, so I
yeah.
I
No, it's
quickly dropped back out.
no, it's now that you mentioned, I hadn't thought about it for a while either, or heard about it. So yeah, maybe
But
they
they,
sell it to Microsoft and then it will be killed.
I feel like threats also they were integrating with some decentralized apps, and
Hmm.
they were supposedly going there. I'm not sure. Like, do you know how far that is?
Well, when I was on Mastodon, there were like really different reactions to it. Like some people, I think the creator of Mastodon was kind of enthusiastic. And then you have all the different instances who can decide for themselves. Uh, some were like, no way, no access at all. And others were like, yeah, sure. So it was really different. That's also kind of what I like about Mastodon. Well, it also has a lot of disadvantages, but this is just a good example of like decentralized stuff. Like you're not
Well,
obliged by any central power to do something or to. Yeah.
is that what also got you into decentralization and that kind of realm, crypto and decentralized social networks?
Yeah, I've like I said, I've been on the internet since the early '90s or maybe late '80s even. So I've seen it grow up and change and all that. I think the at some point like people making their own websites and RSS feeds, blogging. That was just that felt good. That was nice. And then you got like stuff like Pinterest and Facebook who just wanted to take content, and if you wanted to deep link into it or share it with someone, you couldn't because you had to make an account or whatever. And then you felt like, okay, I don't really like this. I don't want to support this. So I was never really enthusiastic about those developments. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, yeah. So when I first heard about it, I was like 2008 or 9 or something. I don't know when did it start, like 2007. Well, anyway, let's say 2010. I was working somewhere that was like didn't really pay really well. And so it was fun, but I didn't buy anything because even like spending €100 on it back then was like too much for me. And then you got the WikiLeaks stuff, and like the American government or whatever, they decided that PayPal could not accept donations anymore for WikiLeaks. I was like, okay, that's curious. Are we going to play like this? And that made like cryptocurrencies a good use case. Not at the moment because it really didn't. Well, work is not the right, but there wasn't any big way to cash out for WikiLeaks or whatever. But it showed that it could be an interesting use case for such occasions, and to have an independent like money system. And I've always been interested in. At some point, Ethereum started, and that was like the next step. Uh, and you got the whole NFT. And I've always been like a bit in two worlds because a lot of my like peers, especially like the European or well also American like the open source people were like, oh, cryptocurrencies are a big scam and it's stupid and it makes the world burn. And well, which is one of the reasons I never liked Bitcoin because it is really like climate, what do you call it, polluting. Um, so like I said, I was always in two worlds with one half of the people or more than half of the people saying that it's just stupid, and then me and some others like, well, there's interesting use cases, and of course, like the financial guys and the corporate things are going to screw it all up and make it, yeah. There's like the way it is now. I'm not really happy with like 90% or even more of the whole crypto space. But I still think even NFTs, even if it's like a stupid word, just or what do you call it, a tainted term, I still think the idea in itself is really interesting. Just to have, what do you call it, like something a digital object, like a
Yeah.
unique digital object that has really interesting use cases. Um,
When
yeah,
you look at it from the energy standpoint, are you more happy with how Ethereum right now behaves in terms
Yeah,
of
definitely.
having a staking system? Because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of Bitcoin people say that okay, you can take Bitcoin and just mine it where energy is cheap and where it actually stabilizes the grid, so you can have green Bitcoin in that sense, so it doesn't have to be polluting. That because that's just the energy source that's input into it.
Mhm.
And on the security side, you could argue that well, if you take that and you actually have to put that much energy in, you get that security of that energy because that
Mhm.
energy doesn't come free.
Yeah.
While if you just do capital coordination, we've seen that fail in politics
Mhm.
all over the decades. Whereas Bitcoin is just energy input, which should remove the governance, and then you do not have governance or like politics that fail. At least like that's the other side of the argument.
Yeah. No, that's true. I get that. Um, it's just not worth it to me, basically. I think climate and the whole way we are currently like. Well, I don't want to get too political, but let's say I'm pretty hardcore climate guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's just top priority for me. So even though
yeah,
the arguments are solid for Bitcoin being as it is, I don't want to like add to it.
yeah. Interesting because you could say like if you just put it in Iceland or some other volcano region, well,
Hmm.
doesn't really matter. It's all green.
No,
Um,
but you're already seeing in like Texas and whatever that it's always like uh, developed some way that what yeah I
well,
don't have like
yeah,
I
one thing
don't
you always have to do though is you always have to get the rare metals to produce the computers,
yeah.
especially if it's like single-purpose chips that are obsolete after a while. I'm
Hmm.
not sure how the refactoring and recycling of those like Bitcoin ASICs that just have been used, haven't been used goes because with the graphics cards you could sell them back to gamers and make somebody's time a little more fun.
Yeah, true. I think there's very few people in the Bitcoin like mining community that are really like environmentally conscious. There are a few of them, maybe in Iceland. I really haven't read up on it lately, so I don't have good arguments
Sure.
or solid backed arguments for you. But I think most of the people will just use it as a good argument and just try to make loads of money. I think it already went wrong in Texas, but I'd have to read up on it again. So.
Sure. If you look into it from the financial system side, being in Europe, well, there's a really solid financial system already, right?
Hmm.
So if you're talking to people, what's usually the arguments or the points you make for and against using blockchain in that sense?
Well, with a lot of the people, unless I go to some like meetup, like I went to when the Vitalik film was in premiere a few months ago, I went to a meetup, but outside of that, I don't really talk with people about cryptocurrencies because it's a bit of a tainted subject nowadays. Um, I think, yeah, I mostly bring up the use case with WikiLeaks, like or and make examples like if you want to donate to the Ukraine or Palestinians, and then your government says like no, we're not allowing that. That would be a good use case. Uh, Nothing really much besides that. So I guess you could summarize it as stay avoiding government intervention, but they could still like arrest you if they forbid it and find out. So yeah, you'd have to use Monero or whatever, but they're like if they forbid it, there's so very few people who would do it. They would just yeah take that hit. I'd say.
Yeah.
Um,
What so then what makes it also a tainted subject? Because you're saying like, oh, like,
mm,
there's probably a reason you don't talk to it, you don't talk about it as much. So you're saying like, well, we've already seen the government interventions,
mhm.
and it will always work. You just have to make sure that like you're not caught or something. And there are
I,
solutions like you mentioned Monero, but like, what makes it tainted?
I guess it's the I guess the people I hang out with, or it's a bit of the bubble I live in. So it's either all the people who blindly trust the government, or it's like the open source nerds who are just rabidly against it, also without any really good arguments. Like
What's the
you
usual
can't really
argument?
have a good, well, you can't really have just a good talk with a lot of people about it. It generally devolves in that it's just a scam and bullshit, and there's no fundamentals, and it's based on nothing. And I'm like, okay. And the stock market is the fact that there's a company behind it is going to make sure that it won't go to zero. I mean, is that your argument? I don't know. I'm also not really good at arguments, so that's maybe my
Okay,
problem.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um, if someone disagrees with me, I'm like, okay, whatever. You have your life, and I'll go shower myself in Degen at some point. So
Yeah, interesting because like so you're just like, oh, I don't even care. But what makes it really interesting to you though? Like, because you've stuck around, right? Like
yeah,
2010s, early. Like you're probably now like more than 15 years into it.
yeah, apparently, but I'm not filthy rich, unfortunately. So
Well,
that's not the reason, apparently. Like I said, and there's interesting things happen. There's also a lot of interesting people working in it. So and the developments, like a lot of financial. It's like speed running the financial system. I heard someone say, and I think it's good to do that sometimes. Try things again, and you'll make some mistakes, and some people will lose a lot of money. But okay, there's also like new. You could see it as like the internet is also just a different way of communicating. When I started going on the internet, I said to my mom like, I can talk with people in the US, and I'm playing games with them, and she was like, why would you do that? You can just send a letter, or you can just play games with your friends. So it's like a new for the internet. It was a new way of communicating, and for cryptocurrencies, it's like a new way of doing money, and it definitely has use cases. So, I mean, I've been able to send a lot of Dogecoin to the Ukraine a few years ago when it just started. Um, that I couldn't like normally. I wasn't doing anything with it anyway. Well, I don't know what I wanted to say there. um, yeah, it's just an interesting space. Like also Farcaster and the stuff that's happening there. I keep mentioning Degen because I think the guy's JSEC is just the stuff he's trying out. Sometimes he hits, sometimes he misses, but that's just an interesting way of yeah, doing stuff with money or with value. I don't know how you
yeah,
should call it.
it's interesting. You seem to have like a really, how shall I say, calm perspective on it.
Hmm.
Well, usually crypto just brings up so many different emotions for people. Some are scammed, and that's uber negative. Some just got
Yeah,
lucky or rich or worked in some way of shape or fashion to just use all of the financial rails to just get somewhere. And you're like, no, that's like really cool looking at it and see what
yeah,
people try.
yeah. That sums it up. I mean, the really enthusiastic cryptocurrency people that wanna like bolt and glue blockchain onto everything. That's kind of annoying as well. Um, yeah.
When you look at that, what's your number one use case?
Sorry.
What's your
For what?
number one use case for
For
blockchain?
you mean for blockchain or
Yes.
Web3? Because I feel those are a bit different things. Blockchain is just I forgot the English words, but to have like a distributed trust, or yeah, or trust is not the right word. I'm sorry, I can't really find the. I'd have to look it up, but that would be my like just a global ledger.
Yeah.
that I feel is, you know,
What would
I
you
don't,
build on top of it? Like now you have this like ledger, this kind of database like system, this book
Mhm.
of records, and what are you building on top of it?
I'm not building anything on it on top of it. I don't have like I a lot of things have already passed in the past years have been tried and turned out to be bad ideas, like putting medical information on it or whatever. It just doesn't seem like a very good idea. Or um,
What
so
makes it not a
for
good idea?
now, hmm?
What makes putting medical data on a global ledger not a good idea? And why do you think it was tried?
I think it was tried, but because probably at some point there will be some security breach. I think that seems like pretty bad to have that in everyone's hands. That's required. I mean, if you have a security breach now, you lose some money, but well, yeah, medical information feels like even worse, to be honest. And that's I don't have any medical issues, but I mean, yeah, it feels worse. But I don't have a good, like, what do you call it? Really good founded arguments for it. But yeah, I haven't really thought a lot about what I would build on the blockchain besides what I've seen happening in the past. So I don't have any new ideas for you to share. I mean, I think just for the cryptocurrencies, money, it's a good idea. I really like ENS, so the Ethereum name service. Um, Although it hasn't become as popular as I would have thought it would. Um, those two seem pretty. I mean, I think my main point would be decentralized identity, just owning your online identity, because that's something that doesn't really exist yet. On Twitter, your name can be taken away.
Yeah, ENS kind of could potentially solve that. Farcaster with FIDs
Mhm.
and their ID system could potentially solve it. If you think about digital identity, what's the makeup of that? How do you define that?
Well, let me first say that that's with Farcaster, it would still be. Well, I feel like it would still be in like centralized hands, although they're working. But then I would be talking like Warpcast, because that's the main entry point into Farcaster still, and I don't know if that will ever change. So my preference would be ENS. Although thinking about it, Warpcast could also block ENS, so you're back at square one. And now I forgot your question.
How do you define digital identity? Like, what's it to you? How would you structure it, lay it out?
How would I structure it? Oh man, I don't know. Like I said, I just like it's just a label that you have as a person online for me, and also an entry point to one's wallet. But yeah, whenever there have been like new platforms or whatever, I've for me it was always important to have my own name on there, like the
Yeah.
Eric name, because that's what I've been using like since the late '80s or early '90s. On the other hand, you could also think for why get so worked up about it. I mean, a lot of people don't care.
No, but it actually feels like identity recognition, right? It's like if people
Yeah,
call you something, you accept it and you go by that, or you pick a name
yeah,
for yourself.
and it's also
You want to
maybe
carry that across.
yeah, it's identity, and also maybe oh, I'm bad with my English words at the moment. Reputation. So that feels like a
Yeah.
bit of the same thing to me. Um, so
Well,
if
I actually feel like reputation is attached to
yeah,
your identity, right?
hmm,
Because like you wouldn't have reputation if you weren't able to pinpoint who it was that
right,
you find
yeah, but
reputable.
but it goes together. So if you lose like your name or whatever, if you go to another platform, both your identity and reputation are maybe gone unless you're a really big influencer.
Yeah,
Um, so I
I can
guess
see
for
that.
me, yeah, I think identity, but also reputation is what makes it important for me.
Yep. If you think about it, how's that going for you when you then use it, right? Because you already now are like implementing across different social networks. If you then had one identity system, how
Hmm.
would that change the way that you're building your app?
Yeah. Well, I would expect that like the different platforms let's just take ENS then as the use case, but then different platforms would support that and hopefully use the same way of signing in. That would at least make developing a lot easier because that's like the last part I'm working on with my client is implementing accounts and signing up for stuff and making it easy for the user. I mean, I can like there's developer ways of using an API, but you don't want to put that on users. That's too annoying and hard. So you have to go to some OAuth flow, and that's also not very nice. So I haven't, like I said, I'm only supporting Mastodon and BlueSky at the moment. So I will look at Farcaster soon. Um, I don't know how that sign up flow is, but it would be nice to. There was some sign in with Ethereum thing developed, or
No, well, there's a
I recall.
standard. Yeah, signing
Yeah.
with Farcaster itself is built on top of that, which mainly means that
Mm-hmm.
people use the Webcast mobile app. Coinbase is also coming out with a client. So those two will then we'll see what kind of authentication system they will both collide on eventually. I think it will
Yeah,
be
but it,
signing with Farcaster, which is like you said is built on top of signing with Ethereum.
yeah, but it would be cool to just have one. What do you call it? Login name or whatever. One identity that you sign in once into my app, and then I can just access whatever platforms the user is a member of. That would make things a lot easier. Um, but that is just convenience for a developer. I mean, that's not super important. It's
Well, for the
nice.
user, it's also convenience, right? Because if I
Hmm.
log in once, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
need to
true.
anymore.
Yeah, true. But I think there's also a lot of users who don't like to go with the same identity everywhere. They want to have like different identities, but I'm not one of them, so I can't really speak for them. But you come across them, like mainly on Mastodon, where they're wearing furry suits or whatever. No, but that's not really nice. I mean, it's people that have it a bit harder in life than like average white dudes like us, as can see in the US now with all the people and their gender not being, uh, you know, really being accepted anymore, and that it's just kind of getting kind of dangerous for them. So there is people who don't want to have their identities automatically be signed in everywhere with the same identity because it could just be dangerous. And that's,
Yeah, and
but
you're basically
as you,
connecting your whole identity back together, and you don't want to let people see different parts of your identity for various different reasons, right?
Mhm.
And I personally have feel strongly about there being a right to that privacy.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah, it
again,
needs to be a
the
choice. I mean, I'm, I'm really for people to just make their own decisions. And if you want to share your identity and log in with the same thing everywhere, that's really easy and convenient. And yeah, that has its good sides. And that's mainly my use case at the moment. So
perfect, yeah.
no,
What's like you said logging in and just getting the app out is the next steps.
yeah.
Would love to quickly get like a roadmap on the app where people can see you.
Hmm. Yeah, so I have to. I did. register a domain, but there's nothing on there yet besides hi, so I'm not going to share it yet. Um, but I really have to work on that. Like you said, roadmap, known issues, features that I want to implement soon that I think important, but perhaps users want other stuff first. Because, like I said, I don't have direct messages or notifications.
Yep.
I DVR on Farcaster said that notifications are really important. I guess he's right. He's more experienced than I am, especially in this space. But I go through my life turning off all the notifications in almost all my apps except
Yeah.
Signal and WhatsApp. So
Interestingly,
it's not
most
really,
users don't. This
yeah. So I don't. It's
also
not
with
really important
identity.
for me.
I have not
Yeah.
connected my Twitter to my Farcaster, even though I have the same name across them.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's thousands, tens of thousands of users who've done it, where you can see their wallets, meaning their financial data, and you can track them across different social networks because they've just all connected it together because they want that. They want you to be able
Yeah.
to, oh, I like him here, let me also go here, follow him here,
Sure.
and tie that all together. With notifications, there's a few apps built in and around Farcaster that also shared their increase in usage since being able to send notifications, and it's
Hmm.
astonishing. Like, not
Yeah.
sending notifications to users is definitely something that just hinders growth and doesn't make the app actually work
Yeah.
and retentive in the long run. The Ponder were doing questioning and polls every day. They asked their users like, "Oh, do
Hmm.
you want to just get a notification once a day, or like on every single one?" And the users just didn't care.
Yeah.
They were like, "Give me all of them."
No.
Um,
Yeah. I just. It's like a total different world for me. I mean, I just can't go through life being a slave to notifications. It would drive me totally insane. I mean, when I'm sometimes talking, I was talking on Nostar. Someone asked me a question there in a direct message, and then I answered, and I was put my phone away, and I looked at it a few hours later, and he was like, and this and that, and are you still there? Hello? And I was like, hello, this is not like WhatsApp or whatever. Leave me alone. I'm not, and also sometimes when I tip someone on Farcaster or I send a message or whatever, and you get like a reply right away, and I'm like, "Whoa, are you glued to your phone or something?" And then I'm like, "Okay, yeah, they probably have notifications on or whatever." But no, I
yeah,
don't want to go through life like that.
yeah. For me, for
But
example,
it's
like I have notifications on for some things, and then I'm able to just quickly get back to people or to see it. Or
yeah. Well, like I said, I've got them turned on for WhatsApp and Signal if someone really needs to reach me or whatever. Although even to my kids, I say like if I need to pick you up, just give me a call. I'm not gonna. Otherwise, you'll be standing there for like 15 minutes before I see I see the WhatsApp message.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, notifications is pretty high on my list because I realize it's important for a lot of people.
yep.
So direct messages, I don't know. it's it's it's
But
it's a lot of work.
yeah, we're also like with direct messages, we're kind of also back to just like what kind of system do you use for them, right? Because they don't really
Yeah.
work across all of the different apps that
Well,
you want
that's
to
the
implement.
problem. It's a lot of extra work for I don't know the payoff. Like I'm just gonna like position my app as for people who just want to keep up with the timeline and with the people they follow and they want to react to it or whatever. And I don't know if it ever gets popular or bigger, or then I can put in time for the other stuff. And if it doesn't, then we'll see. Maybe I'll open
Awesome.
source it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. If you were to send people somewhere to follow up with the app and keep in track before we close out,
Yeah.
where do you
For
send people?
now, I'll just be posting on my Farcaster. What do you call it? I identity
Yep,
or my Farcaster account, just
yep.
the Eric one, and at some point I'll split them up in another one for announcements. But it's not so far yet. So
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, I'll go put out an alpha for Sailfish OS first. Send some APKs to people for Android, and then we'll see. I don't know how. It depends on like when users go hog wild on your software. Usually there's a lot of stuff to fix. So I don't know when I have an official Android release.
Awesome. No, that's
Yeah,
so cool. Thank you
yeah,
so much for sharing and coming on.
yeah. You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks as well. It's a fun talk.
Awesome, DJ.
Sorry.
Thank you for listening, and thanks for the guests for coming on to Techsuite for the C-Suite. In the description below, or the show notes, whatever you want to call them, you will find the awesome resources our guests mentioned to get you started. You can find links to our guests, and you all can also find a summary, takeaways, and other links to keep connected with the show. Thank you so much for listening. Have an awesome day.